Let's talk about jobs. Many of you are either actively job hunting right now, through no fault of your own, it's just been a very crazy year, or you are concerned about the prospect of needing to job hunt in the near future, or you may have just made a life shift, for example, graduating from a program with a master's degree in data science and artificial intelligence, such as those of you in my studies at Northwestern University's MSDS program, where I teach artificial intelligence and have for the past 10 years. In that case, you're probably saying to yourself, I'm good at what I've got. I actually have a secure job for a while, but I want to move forward in my career. Or perhaps what you really want is to be more attractive, more visible to those who are looking for people to fill certain specific niche roles that you might not be aware of right now. So we're going to talk about 3 strategies for job hunting. Taken together, they position you and are example for this situation. You know that we're in geek land. You know we're very geeking out here because we're going to use a mathematical function as our mathematical function as our analogy or example. It's the difference of Gaussians. And we're going to look at how you can first of all define who you are, direct your outward reach, and then as a third step, differentiate yourself vis-a-vis your colleagues/competitors, those who might be considered for same or similar positions. So let's start in. By the way, I'm Dr. Aliana Moren, founder of Themesis Incorporated, founder of the Themesis Academy. I've been teaching artificial intelligence at Northwestern in the Master of Science Data Science program for the past 10 years, but that has been my cover story while I've evolved Themesis. Themesis is a boutique company focused on AGI research. We do some very innovative things that have a fairly deep reach into statistical mechanics of a fairly novel nature, and we're not even going to discuss them right now. Our focus right now is on education, because before we can bring you with us into this new AGI realm, we've got to take care of immediate survival needs. And our immediate survival right now depends on having a safe and secure job so that we can take whatever free time we can get to prepare ourselves for our role in AGI. One more word though. Part of what happened is that I got recruited for a job, the current one at Northwestern, and then more recently a tech recruiter reached out to me for a position that was interesting, not quite my cup of tea, but I'm taking that as an example, and let's use it to start your first process, the first strategic endeavor. So I'm going to suggest that as you cultivate and create and curate your self-definition, which is not easy. I mean, if I asked you to just write a little bio, bios are the hardest thing to write, aren't they? I mean, I cringe every time I have to think about it. Let's structure it. I'm not saying this is definitive. I'm saying if you don't have a good bio and you're struggling to come up with, like, how do I do this? This might work. So think about 3 things that characterize you. The first one should be the most tangible, the most specific, the most evidence to back you up. In my case, for example, I would describe myself as an inventor. And I've got patents to my name. My current invention, Corticans, is actively being developed and has a trademark registration in process. My innovations, my inventions, if you would, have brought in over $4 million. This was a couple of decades ago. SBIR and STTR, that's Small Business Innovative Research, and Small Business Technology Transfer Research, contracts and grants. And that was way, way back then. I was the principal investigator. Each of those was based on work that I innovated and put forward in a proposal. Later led the project. More recently, but this is still reaching back a ways, my innovations led to not just the 3 of the 4 patents that I have, but the first of those patents was the basis for receiving 2 rounds of VC investment funding. So I can point to specifics that bolster that self-description, if you would. So your job is to look through all that you've done, and specifically it could be projects that you've led at work or where you've made a major contribution, or if you've done research as part of even an educational program, like projects that you've done for school, try to reformat them so that they look like projects that you did because you're interested in them, not like school project. But if you had any leeway at all about deciding what you were going to do and how you went about it, and if you can go back and look at those and say, this is how I approach that problem. So in Northwestern, I see people with various unique, I call them superpowers emerge. Like one superpower, one gal recently, great at doing systems integration in a way that just scares me. It's like, oh my God, I could never imagine myself doing that. For her, that's the easy stuff. That's the fun stuff. That's her home turf. Other people, I've had one student say he loved doing data cleansing. It's like, wow, isn't that interesting? But somebody who has a passion for getting into the data and figuring out how do we clean this up, how do we make it appropriate for the algorithms that we're working, that's a rare and unique gift. Keep digging into the how do you go about solving the problems when you have a chance to show your unique flair. That's key to the first definition. Second one could be a little bit broader. You still want evidence to back it up, but it is not necessarily as tangibly connected. So in my case, just offering myself as an example, I would say that I'm an educator. And the evidence that I offer is not just teaching at Northwestern, where I've been for the past 10 years, but on my own in Themesis, now here's the thing. It's not just, I put together this short course. It's like, what kept me musing? What did I think about, prior to, during, after my meditations in the morning? What was consuming my thoughts when I would go for a walk or when I was falling asleep? And it was a question that probably not many people think about, but it was, how can I take these particular, very abstract, esoteric, arcane almost concepts in statistical mechanics that are highly relevant to neural networks, particularly to generative AI, and how can I take these concepts and make them so approachable, so easy, so tangible that a high school student could understand them. And that led to my developing certain very specific stories, analogies, examples that I presented in course material for the top 10 terms, and I've leaked some of that into publicly available YouTubes. But that, on reflection, as I brought it back to myself, I said, one of my key strengths is not just that I can teach these abstract, esoteric concepts, but that I really work to make them approachable and grabbable and stick in the headness for people who don't normally like to think in that way. A unique superpower. Similarly, scout around in what you do for another skill combined with a trait that is how you uniquely approach things that might not be as tangible. You may not be able to point as many dollars to it or specific team wins or whatever, but as you reflect on it, this describes you. This describes your unique approach. That's number 2. Number 3 could be a trait or a role. For example, I was talking with somebody recently and I was asking him, what is your superpower? And he had to contemplate this a bit, but what he said was, I keep calm in the storm. And I thought, that's fabulous. It's kind of like you're the team whisperer, so to speak. You'd want to find maybe a different name, but even just saying, calm in the storm. Calm in the storm. You wake up, show up at work, or maybe you're like coming in early because there's been texts from the boss. It's like, oh my God, crisis, crisis, crisis. And everybody's all jacked up and cortisol levels are rising and tempers are rising and people are having these little, jagged edges. And the person who can be calm and soothe the team dynamics and get everybody to take that deep breath, soften the edges, lower the heartbeat, relax the shoulders, relax the belly, get present and focused and just be with each other, and they can say, okay, let's figure out how we're approaching this. That person is worth weight in gold. So that third trait that you might want to identify could be the more, I don't want to say esoteric, but like less tangible, less tied to specific products, specific dollars, specific results, more how you interact your specific role with others. In my case, I'm a muse. When I'm talking to somebody about how they're going to evolve their role, I keep listening and finding those little tiny nuggets within them and bringing them forward and holding them consistent and saying, this is who you really are. This is who you are. This is your vision. And I hold that tone. And sometimes people have to like wobble around a little bit before they can really just own that and identify that, yes, this is me, and then move towards really embodying that. That's what a muse does. And I realize that as I work with students, and this isn't always the case. Some are much more pragmatic and straightforward interactions, but there are times that my role with a student is eliciting their next self, and I hold that tone as muse. And I do that with people who are creating companies, who are evolving new paths in life, who are branching into something very different, and need that external point of validation, who truly sees into that person and sees who they are becoming, not who they're defined as right now. So you, for your third element in your key description of self, find that part of you that is not necessarily a muse, not necessarily a team whisperer, but what is it that uniquely you bring to your interactions with people, or how you focus in on something that is a specific gift that isn't necessarily related to tech skills. Then we craft that into your bio, and you want to have that consistent across all your platforms, your LinkedIn, your GitHub. If you have a website, which I encourage, it goes there. More on that, different video, different time. Let's move on. Next element is, how do you set up those communications with others to establish your role and get a little visibility? And you know what? There's a lot of techniques out there, a lot of tactics, but let's address the broader issue. A lot of us, first of all, we're introverts. Secondly, when we're stressed in particular, we tend to tight focus, and we've been getting most of our rewards, so to speak, psychologically and otherwise, by completing projects, doing a great job on a project, putting out the results, and our essence has gotten tied up with being focused and bringing something to completion, which is fabulous, okay? Really, really important. I do it, you do it, we do it all the time. But encouragement to step back from that and broaden our energy and start putting attention and energy into communicating with people when we're using some form of social media. So we're not specifically communicating with people whom we know and have a relationship. We're just putting it out there. That feels weird and strange and awkward. There's no immediate feedback loop. We're not too sure if we want to be that exposed. And then sometimes it just feels like, who am I to be putting myself out there? I'm not one of these big names. I don't have a corporate position that endorses me going out there. Everything that I've gotten approval for, that I've been getting my validation about for as long as I've had a professional life and even a student life, has to do with very specific goal accomplishment. And this just seems really like, ooh, out there, amorphous. We have to work through our stuff. I have to work through stuff. I mean, my sitting here right now, shooting vid, comes after I've been meditating on this topic for you for several days and putting together a blog post with the resources for you. That was like a day's deep work for several hours. And now here I'm talking to you, and it'll get followed up by editing. And some people are going to watch this and some people won't. Some people will find, oh, this really resonates. Some of you won't. And I'm having to way step out of comfort zone, and only the fact that I really kind of like this, but it's been a learning experience, makes me comfortable. And bolstering it with reaching out to people via social media and other methods, which I describe a little bit more in the blog post. It takes stepping out of my comfort zone. I have to really make an action item in my to-do list, schedule a time, and if it's for something like writing notes to people, like coming up, writing Christmas cards, I actually have to get myself out of the office. I have to get myself to a little coffee shop or a place where I can just have a drink, sit down, write things out, and not be distracted by the many things around me and the triggers and the cues that tell me that I should be doing such and such. But here's a word. I'm shooting this in mid-November. We're coming up on the holiday season. I know this is going to be an evergreen video. You'll refer to it. God, could be looking at it over July 4th weekend next year. But the beauty, the virtue of right now is you have a socially sanctioned excuse to go forth and actually reach out to people in a way that might just seem a little, weird without having the holiday excuse. But holidays are here, and it's totally okay to send somebody that you might know sort of tangentially via LinkedIn. Maybe you took a course with them a while ago. Somebody who might be in your inbox, somebody where you might have their phone number. Just reach out, email, direct message, phone call, whatever, and say, hey, just, want to touch base, convey season's greetings, catch up, how are you, how's the family? Social excuses exist right now, so this is a superb time to take advantage of them and cultivate relationships, because you need to cultivate those weak ties. Remember, important paper on that a while ago, Power of Weak Ties. Link to it in the blog post. Link to the blog post in the description box. But the reason for that is job opportunities are likely to come through weak ties. That's why it's important to build and maintain relationships. It's why it's important to show up virtually or physically in groups like the Themesis Salon, but wherever you get a chance to be in a room, digital or physical, with other people, and not just be there once, but build relationships over time. Case in point, I was talking with a professional colleague recently. He's somebody whom I just truly admire and respect and absolutely adore. He works and has worked for well over a decade with a very premier company, and he has a very top role. And he got the opportunity to share with Northwestern students. Regrettably, it was only valuable for those who were going to take further courses, so the capstone students couldn't exercise this opportunity, but those who were in a 458, the AI and Deep Learning class, they could. And it was an opportunity to apply for an internship. But you know what? They wouldn't have found out about it had they not been sitting in the sync session, which was better if they were there live than watching it on instant replay over the weekend, because that's when you can ask questions, you can make face-to-face contact. Somebody's going to remember your name, your application comes in, and that person says, oh yeah, I remember that person, we talked. And that's what you want. You want people to remember your name. You want them to introduce opportunities to you. That is so essential. Another example of the same sort, person whom I know right now, relatively speaking, new in his job. He got the job because of a friend that he had in graduate school who alerted him to the opportunity. What you really want is to build out and maintain your relationships. Not the people who are always with you on the day-to-day because they see the same stuff, they think the same stuff, they get the same emails or Slack messages. You're not going to get anything new out of that group. But you want the people who are one jump or two removed, your weak connections, and you want to build just a little bit of relationship with them. Okay, moving on. Third step, differentiating yourself. If you're building a skyscraper, you want to go deep as much as you're going up. You can't just have a few rebars stuck into the ground and build a skyscraper, can you? It's got to be a really, really deep set of bolstering resources. And that's what we need as we are elevating ourselves, as we are differentiating ourselves amongst our peers. So how do you do this? Well, you keep building up your personal story. We're going to go back to step one, defining yourself, where you found 3 things that were you, and you found specific tangible instances. Now, I'm asking you to go back to that, and I'm reflecting on a phrase that I found in somebody else's YouTube recently. It might have been Adam Earhart. I've linked to one of his videos in the blog post, which I linked to from the description box. I mean, you're getting tired of hearing this, but that's where we get that. And I don't think it's quite that vid, but I think it was one of his YouTubes where he said that. And the idea is your storytelling is your mode. So let me just bring you back a second. Perry Marshall, whom I've followed for years, one of my favorite business gurus. Now he's advanced to sort of upper tier businesses who want to go from like 6 to 7, from 7 to 8, etc. But I started to connect with him when he was talking more to smaller scale businesses. And as he kept devising strategies, one of them was build a moat around your business. And I kept thinking, sounds like a great idea, great analogy. What does it mean in practice? What does it mean? And I've been recently reading this novel, rereading it. It's an Ilona Andrews novel. It's Iron and Magic. Male protagonist, Hugh Dombre, is, oh God, he's a mean son of a bitch. But he and the female protagonist are sort of forced together. In a very literal sense, they're forced to marry in order to save their respective peoples in this story. And Hugh becomes the protector/defender of his wife's, Elena's, castle. And his insistence, his obsession is with building a moat around the castle. And a lot of the subplots in the story revolve around his building a moat, his strengthening the moat, his filling the moat, his filling the moat with a fabulous little weapon, if you will, that will totally destroy the enemy who's trying to come in and cross the moat and get to him. Lots in the story, but the whole emphasis is moat, moat, moat. Other subplots as well, but that moat thing, hey, that's pretty consistent. So it's like moat, it's been on my mind. And what I believe it was Adam said, storytelling is your moat. Storytelling is your moat. Storytelling is what differentiates you from everybody else. So I'm going to ask you to cultivate the art of storytelling. Reflect on those things that you uniquely have done in your past, that you're doing right now, that you're getting your inspiration from, that you're getting clarity from. And every time you seek to differentiate yourself from others, use storytelling. Use storytelling to clarify an insight or something that you've offered that you're trying to make relevant to a community or group, or something that would be a teaching story, literally. Storytelling is your moat. Are you watching this and saying to yourself, this is great, it's exactly what I need, but I would love to have someone, specifically us at Themesis, be your own private muse. We are accepting a few private clients, and these are our criteria. First of all, we ask that you have one or more projects already put together so that we can evaluate your projects and use them as a basis for that first step of defining who you are. Secondly, we're asking that you have at least 3 weeks, contiguous weeks, put together where you can focus in on this so that you know that you can make the greatest advance possible in a short time without interruptions. And third, we ask that you approach this with the intention, the clarity of stepping beyond your current role. So if this is the case, use the Themesis.com Connect page. Use the email address, reach out to us, we'll set up a phone conversation, and we can see if we are mutually the right fit for each other right now. Thank you for your time. Please go to the Themesis website, Themesis.com, go to the About page, scroll down, sign up, do the whole opt-in thing. That means a confirmation email. Move the emails over to your preferred email list, okay? The ones that you actually open up. And please open up the email and then click on that first button. That's a double sign of life. I know that you're tracking us, and that lets me know that you want more of this, and you don't even have to make a comment. Just the fact that you would open up the YouTube or the blog post tells me that you're interested in this kind of contact. And it's kind of a circular way of communicating, but it works. And also it makes sure that we can get you the word on all that's going on. It's not always a YouTube, not even always a blog post. There are opportunities that we're sharing within the community, including the Themesis Salon, and as I mentioned, being in the room with people where you can talk, where you can have a conversation, where you can sound things out. And you know that people are being intelligent, respectful of your opinion, but also offering their unique perspective. That's what we need right now. So please, Themesis, hit that About page, opt-in form, confirm, drag the emails over, be part of the community. Thank you. We so look forward to seeing evidence in the future of your success as you differentiate yourself from others. Once again, Aliana Moren from Themesis. Have a lovely day.